Okay, for our next lesson, which is about the forensic photographer and light. Wherein, i-define natin of course what is light and its behavior, and then ika-classify din natin kung ano ba yung objects as to what type of materials are they and how they will behave to light. Alright, distinguish din natin yung different photographic rays as well as the sources of light and types of natural lighting condition na meron tayo. Okay, first to discuss is the qualification and technical skills ng ating forensic photographer o yung tinatawag din nating evidence photographer. So, basahin muna natin. With the advent of digital cameras in the market today, many have the opportunity to take hold of it and take photographs as easy and conveniently as they please. But very few can be qualified as an evidence photographer. So, totoo naman. Laganap ang mga digicams natin, DSLRs, and even the smartphones or yung mga cellphones natin na merong built-in na high quality na cameras na kung saan instantly kaya nating mag-take ng photos. But, sabi nga natin, very few can be qualified as an evidence photographer. Hindi ibig sabihin na kaya nating pumindot ng cellphone, kaya nating gumamit ng camera, is gano'n na rin kadali yung application niya kapag ang trabaho natin or yung ang focus natin ngayon is on how to record and to capture the crime scene itself as well as the evidences na meron dito. So to qualify as a forensic photographer, one must possess the following traits. Ang kaunahan na nga dyan is the technical skills, of course. Hindi mo yan magagawa, pangalawa, kung wala kang knowledge in photography. So, with regards to technical skills, so kailangan alam mo kung paano mag-operate, kung paano magpagana, or gumamit ng isang camera, as well as you have to understand or kailangan may background ka on the basic photography principle such as the lighting, the proper exposure, and the focusing, and then etc. So, kailangan alam mo yon. Hindi mo masasabi na meron kang skill sa paggamit ng camera if you don't have the knowledge with regards to that principles nga na tinutukoy natin. As well as, alam mo dapat on how to avoid the common missteps such as the overexposure, camera shake, and the blurry focus. At marami pang ibang consideration na dapat nating bigyan ng pansin. So, ang ibig sabihin lang dito, kailangan mo ng knowledge or kailangan mo ng background patungkol sa photography in order for you to have that skills na magamit mo as an evidence photographer. Next is the experience to follow with the attention to details, and lastly, a photographer's photographs will stand up in court. So, simulan natin sa experience. Diba? Experienced photographers are doing what it takes to deliver or to provide the quality photos na kailangan natin. So, ibig sabihin nito, diba, mas subok na syempre yung may experience. Sabi nga natin, experience is your best teacher. So, you have the knowledge, you have that skills. So, mas maganda na i-practice mo kung ano yung meron ka. So, you have to engage yourself more on activities and trainings and seminars to practice the skills nga that you have and to apply the knowledge that you have learned on photography. So, with that, diba, ang hinahanap naman talaga natin is yung experiensadong photographer na to record the incident on the crime scene as well as the evidences na kinakailangan natin na makatutulong sa ating investigation. Diba, mahirap naman magpadala tayo sa crime scene ng isang photographer na walang alam. Hindi niya alam kung paano kukuha ng ganito. Hindi niya alam kung paano maaayos yung ilaw kasi medyo madilim yung sagap ng camera. So, marami kasi diyang technicalities na kailangan ayusin or kailangan pa nating timplahin yung camera na dala natin para mapalinaw natin or magandang quality yung magawa natin sa pag-take ng photos. Paano na lang kung wala tayong alam? So, kaya naman kailangan yung eksperyensado na. Kasi nga naman, sabi natin nung una, diba, ang crime scene, once na na-process na yan, nagawa na lahat ng kailangan gawin, na-collect si evidences, napicturan mo na, and so on, lilinisin niya, natatanggalin yung mga evidences dyan, at yung itsura niya, diba, so totally hanggang wala nang naging bakas ng pangyayari. So, paano na lang kung mali yung nakuhanan ni photographer, o kaya may na-overlook siya, o kaya naman pangit yung kuha, wala ka ng pangalawang kuha na maganda, ano na lang yung mangyayari? So, sayang, wala ka ng pagkakataon para kuhanan pa ulit. So, nawalan ka ng pagkakataon para magkaroon ng isang magandang record na pwede mong magamit sa korte as an evidence. Kasi kung iyan naman ay eksperyensado na, alam na niya kung anong gagawin niya. And any experienced photographer knows how to notice and bring out the beauty, or the details in every subject. At yun na nga yung panglima, which is the attention to details. So, mahirap naman yung baguhan, hindi niya alam kung paano tatakbo, or hindi niya gamay. Kung ikaw ay isang eksperyensadong photographer, you know exactly kung ano yung kailangan mong picturean. So, alam mo kung ano yung dapat mong pagfokusan, at alam mo kung ano yung details na kailangan mong bigyan ng pansin. At iyon yung isa sa mahalagang trabaho ng isang evidence photographer. Attention to details, therefore, is one of the top traits and quality na dapat meron ng ating forensic photographers. So, being a keen observer. So, dapat wala siyang ma-overlook again, walang maiwanan na dapat ma-record sa crime scene na pwede nating may-present or magamit sa court as an evidence, and that is the number 6. Photographers' photographs will stand up in court. So, hindi ibig sabihin kasi na marami kang nakuhanan, lahat yun magagamit mo na as an evidence sa court. So, meron pa po tayo dyang points of qualification. Again, na kung saan yun lang yung magiging qualified na magamit natin as an evidence during court presentation. So, una sa lahat, diba, dapat iyan is relating or relates to a specific case. Kung ano man yung photograph na inahain mo sa korte, dapat it must be of material of relevant to the point of issue. Baka mamaya, wala naman ng totally kinalaman, anong use niyan sa korte. Pangalawa, it must be, it must free from distortion, o yung dapat hindi siya product of alteration, o kaya naman hindi mo ma-distinguish kung ano ba yung itsura or ano ba talaga yung pinipicturan mo. Dapat, it must not mispresent the scene or the object or the evidences it appear or claims to reproduce. So, dapat malinaw kung ano ba talaga yung pinatutungkulan ng photograph mo. So, dapat it simply supply or support and explains the testimony of the witnesses. Kung yung mga yon walang kinalaman sa photograph mo, ibig sabihin useless yan at hindi mo magagamit as an evidence sa court. O yung sinasabi nating yung photograph mo will not stand up in court as an evidence. So, yun po yung last na ating qualification and technical skills na kailangan ng isang magaling na forensic photographer. Okay, next. And to obtain such qualification, one must begin in acquiring knowledge and technical skills in the following areas of photography. So, ito na nga yung binabanggit ko kanina. Dapat matutunan mo muna. Ma-acquire mo muna yung knowledge na kailangan mo matutunan, and then ma-apply mo para ma-practice mo yung technical skills na meron ka or na dapat mong possess. So, first, dapat matutunan mo yung about sa light and the lenses. So, pag-aaralan natin yan. The cameras, iba't ibang klase ng camera, and then the parts of the camera, the proper exposure, kung gaano ba kadaming ilaw, kung gaano ba kaunting light yung kailangan, and the films, diba? Kung how sensitive our film is sa light, and kung paano ba tayo mag-develop ng isang film. The dark room utilization, so paano ba tayo gumamit ng dark room, ano ba yung mga equipments, ano ba yung chemical, ano ba yung kailangan, and on how to prepare those chemical para magamit natin for developing. 7, the film and photographic paper development. Next is the negatives, and then the enlargement and printing, o yung process natin kung paano natin maililipat si image kay photographic paper. So, lahat yan mapapag-aralan natin. So, ngayon, uunahin na nga natin is about kay light. Okay, first, about sa ating light. Light is defined as an electromagnetic radiation that has wavelengths of any length. The speed of light in a vacuum is defined to be exactly 299,792,458 miles per second. So approximately 186,282 or 186,000 miles per second. So, ang light po na pinag-uusapan natin is in a form of wave. So, it travels on the eye in a form of wave. So, it is the light that make things visible. Alam naman natin yan. Nang dahil sa liwanag, kaya tayo nakakakita. So, it is the light na ginagawang posible para makakita tayo ng mga bagay na nasa paligid lang natin. So, bakit? Diba? Yung mga objects na yan, hindi naman yan nag-emit or hindi yan nakakapag-produce ng sarili nilang light. Not unless yan ay araw, di ba? May sarili yung source of light. O yun nga mismo yung source of light natin. The sun, the stars, the moon, and other artificial light such as the bulb. So, ibig sabihin, those light that hits our eye o yung ilaw or yung liwanag na meron sa paligid natin, kung bakit tayo nakakakita is originally from the sun or the light from those artificial lights na meron tayo that travels in millions of miles across an empty space or open space. Then it will land into our eyes, kaya naman tayo nakakakita, that make it possible nga na makakita tayo. So, yung mga bagay na nakikita natin, our eyes and brain process all some of the information about that thing na nakikita natin ng dahil sa liwanag, the color, the size, and even the distance na nakikita nga natin. So, in short, our eyes simply collects lights na nagre-reflect or that falls, on the subject. So, si light nagre-reflect, tumatama yung ilaw sa paligid natin, tumatama yung ilaw sa mga bagay na nakapaligid sa atin. And then, in short again, our eyes simply collects those lights that falls on the subject, kaya tayo nakakakita. Okay, next is the electromagnetic spectrum. The electromagnetic spectrum is a continuum of all electromagnetic waves arranged according to its frequency and wavelength. The sun, earth, and other bodies radiate electronic energy in varying wavelengths. So, electromagnetic energy passes through space at the speed of light in the form of sinusoidal waves. Si electromagnetic spectrum po is yung kabuuan ng pinagsama-sama nating electromagnetic waves that is arranged according to the frequency and yung wavelength nila. Kasi meron po tayong division or meron po tayong iba't ibang klase ng electromagnetic waves na sila po is arranged nga and sila po ay magkakaiba. For example, dito si gamma rays, di ba? Si X-ray, si ultraviolet rays, si visible light rays, si infrared, si radar, si FM, TV, shortwave, and AM. Yan po is yung kabuuan ng electromagnetic spectrum natin. And this electromagnetic spectrum po is kabuuan yan ng electromagnetic waves yan na nga na tinutukoy natin na arrange according to their frequency and wavelength. So, try to imagine that for example, ikaw ay nanonood ng TV, diba? Nakikinig ng radyo, nagluluto ng pagkain mo using the microwave, oven. Every time na ginagawa mo itong gantong activities, ikaw ay gumagamit ng electromagnetic waves. Such as, for example, ito, the radio waves. So, radio waves, the television waves, diba? The microwaves are all type of electromagnetic waves na tinutukoy natin na kay electromagnetic spectrum as a whole. So, yan po again is electromagnetic spectrum and then yung different electronic waves po is nakadepende yan sa kanilang frequency and wavelength. So again, going back kay radio, kay TV, kay microwave, so iyan po again is vary in size. So iba-iba po yung kanilang size from radio waves, o try to verify kay radio waves, di ba? From very long radio waves na meron sila to as compared to the waves of the gamma rays wherein meron silang very short na wavelength, di ba? Na smaller than the size of the nucleus of an atom. So, yun po yung differences nila. Sila po is arranged according to its frequency and wavelength na meron sila. At yan po is iba-iba yung gamit, iba-iba din yung function, at iba-iba din yung energy na kanilang napoproduce or napoprovide. So, dahil nabanggit natin sa wavelength, dahil nga sa electromagnetic waves daw ay meron pong sariling wavelength and frequency, si wavelength po na pinag-uusapan natin is the distance measured between two successive crests. So, ano ba yung crest na tinutukoy natin? Ay, ito po yung crest ng isang wave. Yung pinakatuktok ng isang wave na kung saan the distance dyan between the two crests, yan po yung wavelength na tinutukoy natin. Yung haba ng wave natin sa ating specific na electromagnetic waves na tinutukoy. And then the frequency is the number of waves. So, kada classification yan or kada category or group ng electromagnetic waves na yan, meron niyang kanyang-kanyang bilang ng frequency and then ng wavelength. As na-observe nyo dito, diba? Sino ba yung mas mahaba, mas maikli ang wavelength, and then sino ba yung mas marami yung frequencies niya. So, yan po yung ibig sabihin nun. Sa electromagnetic spectrum, yan po is binubuo ng electromagnetic waves na arrange again according to their frequency and wavelength. So, pag-usapan natin yan mamaya. So, ang ating babanggitin dyan, doon sa mga nabanggit natin from radio and then sa gamma, ay yung photographic rays natin na may application tayo doon sa photography. So, pag-uusapan natin si infrared, si UV, si X-ray, and then si visible light rays. So, simulan natin kay X-ray. So, radiation having the wavelength between 0.1 to 10 nanometer or millicrons. They are produced by passing an electric current through a special type of vacuum tube. So, ang kailangan lang naman tandaan kay X-ray, di ba, is yung kanyang wavelength. Siya is between 0.1 to 10 nanometer. So, take note, ang atin pong photographic rays is measured, diba, sa nanometer, wherein 1 nanometer is equivalent in just a billion of a meter. So, ganun po yung kanyang sukat or yung kanyang measurement. Again, si X-ray is between 0.1 to 10 nanometer, wherein, saan ba natin nagagamit si X-ray? Katulad na nandyan. Si X-ray, diba, usually ginagamit yan sa medical purposes natin or medical use, wherein nape-penetrate natin, diba, yung skin ng tao, yung katawan ng tao, nakikita natin yung mga fractured bones, diba, and so on. And then other things or object na nakikita natin as unopaque, kaya niyang ma-penetrate at makita niya yung nilalaman ng mga gamit na yon, di ba? So that is the use of X-ray. So as the wavelength of this light decrease, di ba? They increase the energy. So X-rays have the smaller, di ba? As you can see here, X-rays have the smaller wavelengths. And therefore, higher energy yung kanya napoproduce. We usually talk about X-rays in terms of their energy rather than wavelength. And this is partially because X-rays have very small wavelengths. Again, si X-ray po, meron niyang small wavelength, di ba? And then, meaning to say, the shorter the wavelength, di ba, it is associated with the higher energy levels na na-emit din nila. Diba? Kaya naman, too much exposure, diba, sa X-rays is delikado din sa tao. Next is the ultraviolet rays. So, it is a radiation having a wavelength of 30 to 400 millicrons. So yun lang naman yung dapat yung tandaan kasi napag-usapan na rin naman natin si UV nung una pa. So, 30 to 400 millicrons. And then again, it is used to photograph fingerprints. Na-discuss na natin on multicolored background, document that are altered chemically or overwritings, and the detection of secret writing. So, ito yung pangkaraniwan na use ni UV rays. And then, di ba yung mga secret writings, the invisible writings. So, kaya natin yan makita using the UV rays. And then, one good example, di ba, ng ultraviolet rays ay yung nanggagaling sa init ng araw na nagkokos sa atin ng sunburn, di ba? So, yun naman yun. So, in relation again to our field, ito yung use niya sa fingerprint and then dun sa mga altered documents and then other secret writing. So, that is for the UV rays. The visible light rays, ito po yung rays having a wavelength of 400 to 700 millicrons. So, sabi nga natin kanina, electromagnetic spectrum is divided or grouped yan according to their number of frequency and to its wavelength. So, when you group these waves, yun nga yung kabuuan or it creates the electromagnetic spectrum na meron tayo. But only some of these waves are visible to our eyes. At eto nga po yung visible lang sa atin, which is the visible light rays. So, kung babalikan natin yung kanina. Diba? Etong part na yan, na kung saan eto si visible light rays, ayan, iyan lang po yung kayang makita ng mata ng tao. Si gamma, si X-ray, hindi po yan, and then si UV, hindi yan po nakikita ng mata ng tao. Or hindi yan visible sa ating mata. And then si visible light rays po, yan po yung visible sa atin, kaya naman nakikita natin or kaya naman yung paligid natin is nakikita natin. So, science has proven naman diba that human eye is especially sensitive to light. And ito nga yung light na sinasabi natin, inside the visible spectrum. And then this visible light consists of 3 colors. At ito nga yung tinutukoy natin. The blue, green, and red. Again, 400 to 500 nanometer. Nandito lang naman yung sa, in between ng 400 to 700. 400, 500 si blue. 500 to 600 si green. And then 600 to 700 is si red. So, blue has one of the shortest wavelengths na meron tayo. And it produces a much higher amount of energy. Sabi nga natin, diba, the shorter the wavelength, it produces a higher of energy. And with this case, si blue daw yung merong shortest among these 3. Kaya naman, diba, many study, diba, suggest or explains that exposure to blue light spectrum over time or yung masyadong exposure, causes a severe long-term damage sa mata natin and can affect also our brain. So, that is about the visible light rays. Again, within the electromagnetic spectrum, si visible light rays lang po yung visible sa ating mata. The infrared rays, wherein it is a radiation having a wavelength of 700 to 1000 millicrons. It is used in taking photographs of obliterated writings, burnt document or dirty documents or yung tinatawag nating blackout photography. So, na-discuss ko na rin yun sa inyo. Yung mga writings na hindi na natin masyadong mabasa, madumi, or kaya nasunog, using the infrared rays, kaya niyang ma-penetrate yan, kaya niyang mas mapalinaw, kaya niyang maging readable again, diba? To make this document readable, sa kabila ng pagiging madumi nito or yung pagkasunog nito. Yan yung gamit ni infrared. So, si infrared rays again is not a color kasi diba infrared, hindi po to color or any kind of red. It is an invisible rays and it is only detected by our human skin as a heat. Si infrared rays na detect natin, yan as init or yung heat sa paligid natin. So that is infrared rays. Again, tandaan lang, 700 to 1,000 millicrons. Okay, punta naman tayo sa primary colors of photography. So we have here the additive color model wherein meron tayong red, blue, and green. So isa-isahin natin, madali lang to. Green, di ba? Red muna tayo. Red plus blue, or the addition of red and blue color is magenta po yung kanyang result. And then si red and green, of course, si yellow, andyan lang naman din. Green and blue is cyan. So yun po yung tinatawag natin na additive color model, wherein kung mapapansin nyo sa gitna, meron tayong color white. So bakit white? Kasi po, this color is produced by the combination of all the colors of the visible spectrum. So kapag pinagsama-sama natin yan, di ba, sa visible kanina, we have green, red, blue. Ang kanya pong resulta is color white. So si white po is the presence of all color. So yan po yung simula natin. Next, sa subtractive color model naman natin, wherein si magenta naman, si cyan, and si yellow tayo. So, magenta plus cyan, di ba? Equivalent or will be resulting into blue or violet color. Si cyan plus yellow, si green, and then si yellow and magenta to red or orange. Ito naman yung kabaliktaran niya. Wherein nakikita nyo dyan is black. It is the absence or the complete absence of color. That is why color black yung kanyang kinalabasan. So, it is the absence of or the complete absorption of light. Again, black siya kasi it is resulting to the complete absence of, it is a result of complete absence of color. That is why ito yung kanyang kulay. As compared to dito, the presence of all visible color or light, which is the green, red, and blue, while dito, the absence of all color, kaya naman siya is black. The presence of all color is white, the absence is black. Next, behavior of light. Pag-usapan natin yung behavior ni light. First is very basic na nagpag-aralan to ng elementary, reflected. It is the deflection or bouncing back of light when it hits a surface. We have two classification of reflected light, which is the regular reflection, o yung tinatawag nating specular, and then irregular or yung diffuse reflection. So, again, dito muna tayo sa reflection. Reflected. Reflected is the bouncing back. Tumama si light, nag-bounce pabalik si light. And then, kay regular reflection, it happens when light hits a flat, smooth, and shiny surface. So, ang ibig sabihin lang naman yan, yung tinamaan ni light is a smooth surface. Kaya naman yung kanyang balik, o yung kanyang reflected rays is diretso lang din. While si irregular or diffuse reflection, this occurs when light hits a rough or uneven but glossy subject. So, yung mga uneven surfaces na kung saan hindi siya smooth, di ba? Kabaliktaran lang naman siya. Mga rough surfaces. So, yung kanyang reflected rays is diffuse na, or kaya naman hindi na siya magre-reflect into a straight path. So, verify, etong arrow na to, di ba? Ang tawag po dito is the incident rays. Yung incident rays po yan, yan po yung rays that is originated from the source of light. Si incident rays, kung yan man ay si sunlight, kung yan man ay ilaw, incident rays po ang tawag doon sa tatama kay subject, di ba? Or the rays, again, that is originated or originally came from the source of light, and then this rays, yung tatama or yung tatalbog or yung nag-bounce na light, ang tawag na sa kanya is the reflected rays. Kasi yun na nga yung nag-reflect. Katulad dito, this is the incident rays na nanggaling dun sa source of light. So, yung reflected rays niya, eto na. So, that is for the reflected. The behavior of light wherein nagba-bounce back lang naman yung light kapag nakahit siya or kapag tumama siya sa isang bagay or surface. Next is the diffraction. It is the bending of light when it hits a sharp edge of an opaque object. So, kung ikukumpara natin sa kanina, nagba-bounce back. Bumabalik daw yung rays na nanggaling kay source, wherein si incident rays, di ba, nag-reflect lang as reflected rays. So, dito naman sa pangalawa, nagbe-bend yung light or nag-i-spread lang yung light niya dahil lang natamaan niyang surface is a sharp edge. So, try to imagine din, di ba, yung mga doors natin na nakabukas ng slide, yung spread ng ilaw na nanggaling sa labas is pabuka. I mean, nakadepende yan, of course, sa laki ng bukas or ang awang ng pinto, kung may imagine nyo. So, ibig sabihin lang ito, when light passes through an opening, then, aside from the sharp object na pwedeng tamaan ni light, and as you observe nga, the light spreads. Nakadepende na yan kung gaano kalaki yung spread ng light niya, kung gaano kalaki yung awang ng pinto. So, ibig sabihin, for example nga, nasa isang madilim na kwarto ka, and then sa labas ng kwarto mo, dun yung nakabukas na ilaw, of course, papasok si light sa loob ng kwarto mo. And try to observe na nakadepende yung light na mag-i-spread sa loob ng kwarto mo, o yung liwanag ng ilaw na nanggagaling sa labas, dun sa laki or liit nung awang ng pinto. So, yun po yung isa pa sa example ng diffraction. Nag-i-spread si light as it hits or as it passes through an opening. So, yan po si diffraction. Okay, next is a refraction. Ano ba yung meron dito? Additional na lang to. Wherein the light passes or enter from a series of medium. So, we have here the illustration, the refraction of light, wherein, sabi dito, light bends inwards because the speed of light is lower in the water. Ang reason why kung bakit ganito yung itsura ng lapis kapag siya is nasa isang glass of water, ay is nagbe-bend daw inwards yung image or yung apparent position na nakikita natin sa kanya. So, sabi nga natin, ang epekto nito, it will slow down the light or the bending of light dahil dumadaan to sa series of medium. Ano ba yung series of medium na sinasabi natin? Si light, for example, dumadaan kay air, di ba? Mabilis yan. And then, tumama kay glass, tumama kay water, wherein yung series of medium na yan, yun yung nagpapabagal sa speed of light, and as a result, yung light niya nagbe-bend, di ba? That is why the light bends inward, kasi nga yung speed of light sa water is mabagal. So again, passing from a fast medium, di ba, to a slow medium bends the light. So, in short, yun yung resulta. Bends the light rays toward na normal, kaya ganyan yung itsura, to the boundary between the two medium or yung apparent position nga na meron tayong nakikita na sinasabi. So, ayun po yung refraction of light. So, nagiging iba yung position niya kapag in-observe mo kasi yung light or yung bending of rays is apektado dahil dun sa speed of light, dun sa medium or dun sa series of medium na involved. So, that is for the refraction. Next, types of materials as to how they behave to light. So, napasadahan na rin natin to. We have the transparent, di ba? The light can pass through the object and the opposite side is clear. Katulad nito, kayang mag-pass through dun sa object and then kita mo pa yung kanyang kabila. So, it transmits 90% or more of the incident light o yung light na nanggagaling sa ating source. So, it can transmit na 90% or more, and it allows sufficient visible light to pass through them that the object on the other side, di ba, may be clearly seen, katulad nito. So, that is the transparent. For the translucent, light can pass through the object but not visible to the other side, or partially visible light yung makikita or yung magpapass through sa kanyang kabilang side, katulad nito. So, as compared to the transparent, sa translucent, it allows or it transmit or at least 50% or less of the incident light, or yung light na nanggagaling kay source, it transmits o kaya naman nagpapass through at least 50% or less of the incident light that is coming from the light source. So, example dito is yung mga frosted, stained or the tinted glass, na kung saan nga mahirap minsan ma-recognize kung ano ba yung nasa likod niya or ano yung nasa other side of the object, na kung saan yun yung tinatamaan ni light. So, mahirap makita or mahirap masyadong ma-recognize kung ano ba yung nasa likod niya. Kasi nga, again, at least 50% or less yung nagtatransmit sa kanya. Hindi mo siya clearly ma-establish or clearly distinguish yung nasa kabila. That is for the translucent. Sa opaque, light cannot pass through the object. So, napakadali naman. Like the concrete walls, hindi naman dun tumatagos yung light. So no light can pass through the object itself. So, it is greatly diffuse. Or the opaque object greatly diffuse the light. That recognizing object in the other side is very difficult. Hindi mo makikita katulad nito. So, yung light ay may be diverted or absorbed, such as nga yung mga concrete walls natin. Next, types of lighting condition. So, mapapag-usapan na natin dito si natural and si artificial light na binabanggit natin kanina, yung source of incident light na binabanggit natin kanina. First is the natural source of light. Wherein, di ba, ano ba yung pinaka most common or most popular natin na and mostly used na light source natin or natural light source, and that is the sunlight. So, it is the most used light source nga sa photography, and it is free. Kaya naman, di ba, si light, once na may araw dyan, it is free and no need to be transported. Not unlike dun sa mga artificial lights natin, na bibit-bitin mo pa si flashlight, bibit-bitin mo pa si ring light, and so on. Si natural light that is coming from the sunlight, it is free once na yan ay nandyan. Pero sabi nga natin, hindi naman sa lahat ng oras nandyan si light. It is uncontrollable also, aside from hindi ito lagi present. Bakit? Kasi wala tayong magagawa kung masyadong matirik ang araw. Wala tayong magagawa kung masyadong malimlim yung sinag ng araw. But, the light sa paligid natin, kung tayo ay magpo-photograph or magka-capture ng image, it can be controlled using the camera controls. Yung sinasabi nga natin, the shutter speed, the aperture opening, and so on. So, kahit na medyo madilim, kaya nating madaya yan or kaya nating ma-control using the camera controls. So, yun yung pag-uusapan natin sa mga susunod na topic. So, ano lang yan, overview lang din kung ano ba yung use ni light sa photography. So, again, sunlight, di ba? Kapag ang araw ay nawala, meron tayong moon, di ba? Meron tayong stars. So, ibig sabihin, technically, si sun nawawala, but yung kanyang presence or yung kanyang light rays, hindi yan nawawala kasi it reflects or the moon, wala yung sariling light on its own, and it only reflects the light that is coming from the sun. Kasi again, the moon, the stars, has no lights on its own, and it only reflects the light that is coming from the sun. So, meaning to say, the moon absorbs the sun's light. At yun naman yung nagiging reflection niya sa atin, yun yung Yun yung binabato niyang liwanag sa atin, na galing din kay sunlight. That is why a natural light source is the sunlight. We have the categories ng sunlight or ng natural source. First is the bright, wherein the objects in open space cast a deep and uniform shadow. Tulad nito. Kapag we have the bright sunlight, di ba? Direct sunlight striking the object. And it is the brightest of all among the lighting condition na meron tayo. Kapag bright yung sunlight natin, yan yung pinaka-brightest sa lahat na mapoproduce natin or yung lighting condition na meron tayo. So, image taken with distinct sun is characterized with the bright sunlight is characterized by extreme highlights and deep shadow. Yun nga yung sinasabi natin. Kung ma-observe nyo, diba, sobrang deep and uniform yung kanyang shadow. And it provides the highest contrast in a photograph. Kumbaga, makakapag-produce tayo ng high definition na photograph once we have this kind of lighting condition which is bright. Next is the hazy condition, wherein objects in open space cast a transparent shadow. So, observe nyo, diba? As compared dun sa kanina, meron tayong deep and uniform shadow. Kapag hazy naman, yung condition, transparent shadow yung nakikreate natin. Wherein the sun may be covered by thin clouds. That is why yung nakikreate is a soft shadows and a moderate highlight and contrast ang meron tayo. So, as compared dun kanina, diba, we have the high definition na meron tayong highest contrast and mas detailed and uniform shadow. Try to imagine din kapag ikaw ay nasa malawak na bukirin or nasa expressway, yung biglaang may dumaan na ulap and then saglitan na medyo kumilimlim, diba? So, yung shadow na lumalabas doon is a soft shadow, and then meron tayong moderate na highlight lang and contrast na pwedeng ma-produce kapag tayo is nag-photograph or nag-take ng photo. That is for the hazy lighting condition. Okay, next, Dal. Objects in open space cast no shadow. So, kanina yung dalawa, the bright and hazy, meron pa siyang nakikreate na shadow. But under ng Dal, wala po tayong shadow na nakikita. And under Dal sunlight, there are two categories pa. The cloudy and the cloudy Dal. Dito muna tayo sa cloudy, meron tayong cloudy bright and then the cloudy Dal. Dito muna tayo sa cloudy bright. So, object in open space casts no shadow, but object as far distance is clearly visible. So, kasi sa Dal kasi natin, yung shadow talaga is completely unrecognizable. Sabi nga natin, no shadow at all. Yung mapapansin natin minsan na the sun is shining as bright, but it is covered with a thick moving clouds. So, walang araw, di ba? Yung minsan yung feeling natin na hindi naman paulan, pero walang araw. Kaso, talagang makapal lang yung ulap. Kaya walang liwa-liwanag gaano, and then walang shadow na lumalabas sa mga object natin or yung shadow mo mismo. And then under ng cloudy bright, yun nga, the sun is bright but it is not visible kasi natatakpan ng makapal na ulap. The light is soft and the skies may be covered with the stationary clouds and low contrast yung quality na mapoprovide natin kapag nag-take tayo ng photograph sa ganitong klase ng condition. Kasi again, madilim, di ba? Covered with thick cloud yung araw, and walang masyadong liwanag na mapoproduce. And dun sa cloudy Dal, objects in open space cast no shadow and visibility of distant objects are already limited. Di ba yung kanina, may araw, kaso masyadong makapal talaga ang ulap, kaya hindi mo makikita. Pero dahil may araw, the object yung objects as far distance are clearly visible kasi present pa rin naman si sun. Present pa rin naman yung light that is coming from the sunlight, but covered lang talaga ng makapal na ulap yung langit. Kaya naman kahit merong liwanag pa rin, walang shadow na napoproduce. Kaya naman lower contrast din yung meron tayo kapag nag-take ng photograph. Dito kay cloudy dull, there is no shadow and the visibility of distant objects are already limited. Ito yung tinatawag din natin na heavy overcast na kung saan darker talaga yung paligid, madilim na, yung tipong yung mga condition na kunya na paulan na. So ito po yung cloudy dull, yung malapit nang bumuhos yung ulan. It is practically the same with the cloudy bright, but generally mas madilim to. And yung light itself is dull, madilim talaga. And it provides a very poor contrast, and cloud is sobrang kapal. Di ba nga, mas pinakapal pa nung ibubuhos niyang ulan. Kasi nga, kapag ganito na yung klase ng condition, which is the cloudy dull, automatic yan paulan na. So, again, as a result, it will be resulted to a very poor contrast of image or photos na mapoproduce mo kapag nag-take ka ng ganitong klaseng condition. But again, sabi nga natin, we have the artificial light, we have the control mechanism sa camera para makontrol pa rin natin yung liwanag, diba? Yung exposure, the proper exposure, the ISO, madidiscuss natin yan na kahit madilim yung paligid mo, kaya mo pa rin siyang mapaliwanag. So, tamang timpla lang ng camera mo. Gaya pa rin yan. So, that is for the natural source of light. Last is the artificial. We have the continuous and then the short duration. So, continuous, diba, yung mga ilaw natin, the incandescent bulb, the fluorescent lamp, the photo flood lamp, and so on. So, yung continuous radiation o yung light na napoprovide niya, kahit na siya is artificial, continuous. Not unlike the short duration like the flash, diba? The camera flash or yung mga flash bulb natin or the electronic flash na tinatawag natin. So, sabi ko nga, kapag tayo ay nagtatake ng photograph, we have two sources of light na pwedeng magamit. Yung isa, yung free, di ba, which is the sunlight. Nakadepende na lang tayo dun sa liwanag niya, kung siya ay bright, hazy, dull, and so on. And then si artificial, nakadepende na lang tayo kung siya ba ay continuous o kanong kulay ng liwanag kasi di ba, iba't ibang klase din naman ng colors yan. And then the short duration, kung ginagamit lang siya as a flash, di ba, sa mga cameras, and so on.